Welcome to episode 4 of the AI for Cybersecurity training series. This is your boy Hank Hackerson, and in today's episode, we're going to be going over the threats and the defenses for those threats in the digital world, including the human defenses as well as, of course, AI as a form of defense. If you've ever wondered, could that email or text message actually steal my life savings? The short answer is yes. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the truth behind that answer of how that actually can take place. And there's a specific training series on this channel for CompTIA Pentest Plus. And inside of that training series, I reveal a handful of various tools that can relatively easily be downloaded and used, where if they send you a link with that tool and you click on that link, then whatever device you use to click on that link will be captured or hooked, as the technical term goes. And then from there, they can do whatever they want on that device. They could go into your bank app, they could watch you through your webcam, they could watch you enter your password into something. There's no longer a need for you to actually download something and open that executable, or for you to fill in your information on a website. Literally, if you click on a link, it could be enough for a malicious actor to actually take over your device. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video today. Not specifically that tactic, but these types of threats that actually exist inside of the modern world of digital transactions and cybersecurity, or security in general. And we live more and more on our devices, and that is one of the the preferred approaches that an attacker will take to get all of your information, steal your money, right? Steal your life savings. So a lot of those things are actually really possible now, and we're going to be ripping the mask off of that. So there's going to be the top 10 cyber threats that we're going to talk about that hit real people and real companies in 2024 and 2025. And then we're going to talk about the defenses that work and the defenses that do not work. And of course, why AI is the defender's new best friend. And we'll even use some examples for different use cases for AI in this video of how we're going to use AI to pull that off, and then set everything up for the future videos. Even I think the very next episode that we're going to be doing, where we're going to really start getting into prompt engineering. And then after that, we're going to start integrating with AI and kind of meshing, becoming like a bionic, not bionic, I want an android, kind of like an android that is already integrated with AI, and how you can actually really do that. And not including, of course, the Meta glasses that are coming out and all the other gadgets and gadgets that are coming out that will actually make that happen for you. Just how you can start integrating with AI through Python and through a variety of different codes and things like that. So we're going to get more advanced into this, and I'm just really excited about it. I love this. I love this stuff. So you're going to learn how to spot phishing faster than your grandma spots a fake Rolex, because apparently grandmas are really good at spotting fake Rolexes. Apparently, the paid Hackaholics Anonymous members, you will have a threat landscape mind map. You'll have the terms cheat sheet, the interactive game for the game that we're going to be playing today in this video, as well as the red flag checklist. All of these things are for this episode's downloads, and they're already on the Google Drive link. So you can just go ahead and find that in the agents downloads. So if you're an agent level member or above, you're going to find that in the agents downloads folder, and it's going to be for episode 4 of the AI for cybersecurity training series. So inside of the agents downloads, there's going to be multiple folders. You want to go into AI for cybersecurity, and then you want to go into episode 4. So we're going to be finding all of that, or it's already there, so you can find it. And then we're going to use them for this specific episode. So if you're already watching this, and if you're an agent level member, you can get access to those things and you can use them for this episode, or you can just wait until I get to that section and we can kind of review them together, whatever you want to do. All right, that being said, quick little note on how you can join Hackaholics Anonymous, and we will get into it. If you want access to my notes and exclusive downloads, and to get lifetime access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers. We have the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below and you will be able to choose the tier for which you want to join. I really hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section. So here are our learning objectives for today. We want to learn how to name and explain the top 10 cyber threats that are hitting organizations in 2025 and beyond. We want to understand how firewalls, encryption, multi-factor authentication, and endpoint detection and response actually work, and then where they fail, right? So there's a lot of videos on this channel already on all these different topics. And in case you haven't seen them, we're going to go kind of an overview of how these things work. But what's really key is that where these things fall short and where AI comes into play, right? So how AI actually supercharges every layer of these defenses right here, and how AI can actually supplement your efforts and make you a better security engineer and a security analyst, and ultimately a penetration tester. So to develop muscle memory for spotting phishing, social engineering, and suspicious behavior, this is kind of one of those things that I think most people have already really noticed, because if you're like me, you probably get a dozen text messages per day as well as dozens of emails per day just on a variety of different phishing schemes and social engineering tactics and all of that stuff. So by now you probably already notice it as muscle memory, or kind of like a second language where you just notice, oh, this is scam, this is scam, this is scam. But just in case you're not like that, we're going to go through some of the tactics on how you can do that. And of course, there's a red flag checklist that's available as well. And then walk away with a printable cheat sheet and my cheat sheet. Wow, my accent really kicked in. Cheat sheet and mind map that the Hackaholics Anonymous members use every single day. And you're going to be able to get access to that should you choose to join Hackaholics Anonymous. But we're also obviously going to go through some of those things through the video contents anyways. I don't want you to just, have to only join Hackaholics Anonymous to get the value. You can get it by watching these videos, but there's extra value that takes place when you join Hackaholics Anonymous. All right, so let's get into the first section here. So first we need to look at the real life attacks that actually took place. I have 10 examples for you here, and these are actual examples that have taken place. So the first one is ransomware. Now, ransomware is probably one of the most common types of attacks that is taking place against companies right now. It happened against the MGM Grand last year. It happened last month or the month before against the Department of Motor Vehicles here in Las Vegas in Clark County. I think the local government in general, it's just that the DMV was also hit, and there were multiple DMVs on the East Coast that were hit, and companies in general. There are just so many different cases where this happens. And it's actually really simple. So once they get into the network, all they need to do is encrypt the files, right? So encryption, depending on the algorithm that you use, can be very difficult and very expensive to decrypt, right? So if they use the most basic is, I think, MD1, which has been deprecated very, very long time ago. So MD1 is like super simple to decrypt, right? And then it goes further and further and further up. And then the more common one that you see on website encryption these days is SHA-512 or SHA-256. So SHA stands for the secure hashing algorithm. Oh my God, I completely, that definitely is not what it stands for. I'm sorry, I completely ruined that definition. But the SHA, S-H-A, has the number of bits associated with it. That would be the definition of that specific algorithm. So for example, we have SHA-128, right? And then you have SHA-256, then SHA-512, and then SHA-1200, etc., etc. So it gets further and further more advanced the bigger that number gets, right? So let's say that whoever hacked into your network uses a SHA 2000 something encryption algorithm, which is one of the most complex as it stands right now before you get into quantum encryption, because quantum encryption is really insane, right? So let's say they don't have access to a quantum computer and they don't use quantum encryption, but they use a really advanced form of encryption algorithm like SHA-2000 plus, right? So if they do that, then you would need to do one of two things: either spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars and the months of downtime to decrypt your files, or you need to upload all of the backups, assuming that you actually have recent backups, or you need to pay the ransom for them to decrypt your stuff, right? That's kind of basically the way that this whole thing works. So more often than not, companies are forced to pay some kind of a ransom, mainly because not only does it cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in computing power to actually decrypt the files, it also costs money through the time that that takes. So, for example, Microsoft, every day that the Microsoft network of users through Microsoft Azure and the Microsoft, the cloud platforms and all of their license downloads and all of that stuff, they have millions and probably billions of users, right? So every day that Microsoft is down, then they're going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars per day. So for them, if they, for whatever reason, if they get held at ransom, it's totally worth it to pay 5 million in Bitcoin or 10 million in Bitcoin, because for every day that they're down, they're losing hundreds of millions of dollars, you see? So it's not just the cost of the computing power to decrypt it, it's also the cost in time. So the real case scenario in this particular example, there's the Change Healthcare company, right? So in February of 2024, $2.9 billion in damages was done against Change Healthcare, which is a 1 in 3 Americans affected through the cause of that specific ransomware attack. So defense and backups and EDR and AI typically would be the way that these things would be detected and defended against. And backups is a real thing. It's a very important thing. Having redundancies, that's another thing that's really important. So it's like if you have one set of servers that got hacked into and held at ransom, you should have a backup server that will kick in case that server is taken down, or you should have backups of all of your important files on an external drive somewhere that's not connected to the internet, that can't be encrypted, that if something happened, you could restore your systems from those backups. Endpoint detection and response is one of those things that hopefully will notice as the person is hacking into your system, and before they can even encrypt your files, you can block them and you can kick them out. That's what endpoint detection response is supposed to do. Now, the fault here, like the con in this, or the shortcoming in endpoint detection response, is that a human being has to watch it. So if a human being can't catch everything that's happening, then the AI will fill in those gaps. So if you can actually connect your AI tool, your favorite AI bot, let's say we're using Grok, right? So let's say we connect the API of Grok to whatever the endpoint detection response tool is that we're using, and now Grok is watching all of those log files on all of that traffic, and all of a sudden it notices something shady, something that's happening, and it's like, you know what, we're going to predict that this is about to encrypt our files, we're going to block this, and we're going to stop them in their tracks. That's where it gets really, really powerful. So humans, naturally, before AI came around, humans were the ones that were watching the EDR systems. But now you can integrate AI with the EDR system so that the AI can watch it while the human is distracted. They're picking their nose, or they're checking their text messages, or they're out to lunch, or they're asleep, right? It's like there's so many things that can take place. So, and they could even be watching the monitor, but they're mentally checked out. You know what I mean? Human beings are flawed. So AI comes in and takes care of us in that regard. So this is just the first threat. I literally have 9 more of these, but that was just the first one. So the second one is phishing and business email compromise. So business email addresses that get compromised is known as BEC, and then phishing is the next one. So in 2024, the cost was 2.9 billion per the FBI, and this is an interesting number that it have 2.9 billion in damages that happen against Change Healthcare, but we have 2.9 billion as per the FBI for phishing and business email compromise. So a spoofed CEO email address equals $100,000 wire transfer on average. So one CEO email address that has been spoofed, meaning somebody was able to somehow not impersonate. There you go. Impersonate is the word. So spoofed essentially means impersonation. So somebody was able to technically impersonate somebody's CEO email address, and in order to, I don't know, maybe they cause damages or to release that email address or something like that. On average, one email address that's been spoofed equals to $100,000 in damages. So the red flags here would be that there are urgencies in the email that they present to you. There are typos, there are weird sender domain names, there are links, and all of these things. These are all big red flags. We're going to be talking about this in a little bit. So the defense against this would be to scan the emails through either code that you've written or to have an AI email gateway that can score every message that comes in with a 0 to 100, on 100 obviously being the most risky. And if it thinks that it's super risky, don't even let it get to the inbox of the person. And, it'll look at the urgency in the email, it'll look at typos, it'll look at the domain names of the sender, it'll look at whether or not it's actually the CEO's email that's supposedly sending out that email. And if it is the CEO's email, is it actually coming from one of the IP addresses that has been pre-approved for the CEO to use, right? And if it's not from one of those IP addresses, then it definitely gets blocked and it gets scored as a high risk, right? So the AI can have a series of different rules that it's looking at and checklists that it's marking off to say whether or not something is malicious. And in that regard, it'll block the email. So again, very, very powerful use of AI to detect phishing and business email compromise. These next three are really crazy, actually. So the first one, or the third one, I should say, the third one is the zero-day exploit, which is actually a really big issue. So zero-day exploits are essentially exploits that don't currently exist on the list of exploits that, antivirus softwares and Splunk or anything like that. They have a list of signatures that are attached to exploits that they'll say, okay, based on this signature, we think it's this exploit. So if that signature doesn't exist, it's considered a 0 day, meaning there are 0 days to respond to this because it's brand new, right? It's new to the world of cybersecurity and threat intelligence. And so a real 0 day exploit, it actually sells for $10 million on average on the dark web because it's easier to use a 0 day exploit to bypass any kind of defense mechanism because, again, the signature for that exploit does not exist in the databases of any of these defense tools. So these things are actually really valuable and really expensive. And for the most part, human beings have no idea how to detect them because it's very difficult to detect them with the naked eye. And existing software that is signature based is also not able to do it because it's trying to look for signatures of malicious software or malicious applications. So none of those things will actually work. So we have to rely on anomaly detection or AI. So now an example of this, CrowdStrike in July of 2024 had an outage, and it wasn't even a malicious outage. It was just a bad driver update, but that ended up costing millions, tens of millions of dollars to CrowdStrike and all of their associated companies that would use it. So this can technically even happen just as technically a 0 day kind of an exploit or a 0 day vulnerability. Let's just call it that because an exploit implies that it's malicious. So it could just be a vulnerability that exists. So a bad driver update is a vulnerability. It's not necessarily something that happened maliciously by an attack group, but it is a vulnerability in your system and it actually can cause you millions of dollars in damage. So the defense on this would be to use an AI-powered tool to supply patch management, and it can predict vulnerable code in your system. So it can actually go through the code in your systems to see where there's vulnerabilities that exist, and then from there it would recommend patching. So very, very simple, but it can also obviously read through malicious code that comes in, even though there are no signatures that already exist in your defense tools that would say, hey, this is actually a malicious tool or malicious application or malicious code that's about to launch. The signature might not exist, but the AI tool can actually read and say, hey, you know what, this seems like shady code that's coming through. This is like a shady application or an exploit or something that's coming through, and I highly recommend that you block it. Then we have the next threat, which is the supply chain attack. So in 2020, there was a SolarWinds exploit that took place. And then after that, that same exploit ran up the chain, ran up the supply chain to move it in 2023, and then ultimately through the XRPL libraries in 2025. But it all started from the SolarWind vulnerability, and from there it just went up the chain. This is called the supply chain, right? So SolarWinds provides a service to move it, and move it provides a service to XRL, etc. My God, it's too difficult to try to say this really quickly, but it goes up the chain, right? So you can think of a supply chain, and we talk about supply chain attacks in the CompTIA Security Plus playlist. So if you're interested in any of these types of exploits, we actually do talk about it in other playlists that we have specifically focused on pen testing and security. But this is just kind of an example to show you how AI kind of comes into play here. But basically, a supply chain is, technically, let's say that you want to mine metal, right? So the first part of the supply chain would be in the actual mining mines or the mining fields, where they have the workers and the machines that are extracting ore and rocks from those mining fields. And then the ore is placed onto a truck, and it's moved from the mining field to a factory that will go ahead and process that rock. And then the rock is turned into metal, and then that metal is now put onto a truck, and it's moved to a manufacturing factory where they use the metal to create whatever, a widget or some kind of a technology. And then that technology, it could be a supplementary or like a material that's used to build more advanced technology. So it would move from that factory into another factory, and then maybe even another factory and another factory until the final product is created. And then it moves from that factory and it goes into retail sales, or it goes into an Amazon warehouse for shipping, etc. And that whole process, going from the mining field where it comes as a rock, and it moves from that on those trucks as a rock into the first processing factory, and it's turned into metal, and then it's used to create, that whole thing is the supply chain. So it could have dozens of steps. In this particular example, we're just displaying 3 steps, but it could literally have dozens of steps that goes into the supply chain. And if any one of those steps is compromised, then it affects the rest of the supply chain. So if SolarWinds, which is a software that's used for monitoring traffic and monitoring networks and threat engineering, or not threat engineering, threat detection, it's like a really big platform. It's a big software that's used by a lot of companies. It's used by government entities, right? So if they're able to mess with the SolarWinds source code and actually embed some kind of malicious exploit inside of that, then any other company that uses SolarWinds will actually be compromised, because they're all using this. Therefore, if we mess with this, then millions of other users and companies will actually be affected by it. So supply chain attack is actually a very powerful type of attack. The defense against this would be to use a bill of materials. So it's called the software bill of materials, which is basically saying what is inside of this thing, right? So the bill of materials is a very fancy way of saying this is an invoice, a line by line itemized list of what is inside this thing that you just bought from us and where we sourced this thing. So if it's software, line by line, it's an itemized list where it says, okay, this piece of software was sourced by this location, and then that location sourced it from this other location, etc. Same thing with like a physical device, right? You look at the bill of materials for your cell phone, and they're like, yeah, we got our chips from here, and we got the screens from here, and we got the casing from here, etc., etc. So it's the bill of materials, right? Plus an AI that can scan all of those dependencies in real time. So if we're looking at software, it's very easy for AI to scan through all of those dependencies and then look at all of those dependencies, where they were sourced, what they're consisting of, what they're actually made of, and what their source code looks like, etc. And from there, it'll be like, you know what, this one specific piece in this giant list is actually something that is vulnerable, and if we use it, X, Y, and Z can happen to us. So for software, AI really, really is handy. And again, as I mentioned at the top of this episode, there are so many things that we use in the modern world today that has to do with the digital world, which means software, basically. So it's really handy when you have an AI assistant that in real time is scanning for dependencies, it's scanning for vulnerabilities, potential exploitation vectors, so on and so forth. So it makes it very handy to detect some kind of an attack inside of the supply chain. Threat number 5 is the DDoS or a botnet. So DDoS stands for a distributed denial of service. DOS stands for denial of service, which can come from one source. A distributed denial of service comes from multiple sources. And a botnet is a way that you can do a DDoS attack. So a botnet is a network of bots that will come at the same time and attack you, and then they will try to deny the service to your legitimate users. So that's what that means. So when you go to a website and it says, service unavailable or the server is not responding, whatever, that means that there's a denial of service happening to you, the legitimate user. So the purpose behind this whole thing is to just bring down the business's operations so that their real-time users can't use them. Therefore, they lose credibility, they lose money, etc. So this is a really big attack vector, and mainly it's done through botnets because it's very easy. If you do it through a specific, just one IP address or one or two devices, it's really easy to just block those IP addresses and then you've stopped the attack. So you have to do it with a botnet, meaning there are thousands of IP addresses that are attacking your network, which is a distributed denial of service attack. Therefore, it's very hard to block thousands of IP addresses at the same time, right? So in 2025, I mean, this is just one of the ones that happened. There are so many of these that happen. There was 5.8 terabytes per second that were being done on Cloudflare. So if you can just imagine what a terabyte consists of, okay? And then you have 5.8 terabytes per second that happens through thousands and thousands of bots that are attacking your network. Therefore, it makes it extremely difficult to stop that attack in its place, which means you need to have a redundant server. So if that one server that's being attacked is taken down, you can just stop feeding traffic to that server and then move on to the next server in line so that your system can still operate. This is very, very important to understand. It's like a really important concept. So one of the things that we can do with this is using an AI tool to do something called traffic shaping, which will then absorb these types of attacks like a sponge. So if there's 5.8 terabytes of attacks that are coming in, it gets kind of funneled into this AI traffic shaping tool. And I mean, there's rate limiting, which is kind of another way of saying that we're doing traffic shaping, but AI is kind of the more advanced version of rate limiting, which when a certain amount of traffic is presented to a given endpoint, let's say an IP address, and that IP address is our website, right? So there's a certain amount of traffic that's coming towards our website. We have deemed most of this traffic to be malicious because they're not trying to do anything. They're just trying to slow us down. They're not trying to use any of our stuff. We don't expect this amount of traffic to be coming in because we haven't done any kind of promotion that would allow for this kind of traffic to be coming in. So this is out of the ordinary. It's out of our baseline for the traffic on this website. So if that's the case, we're going to rate limit that specific IP address so that there isn't so much traffic going to that. Therefore, the system doesn't crash. Now, traffic shaping through the use of AI is basically saying, oh, I deem all of this chunk of traffic to be malicious traffic, so we're just going to funnel it to this traffic shaping tool through AI, and from there, it's going to just absorb that traffic, right? It's going to absorb all of that malicious traffic. It's not going to affect our legitimate website or our legitimate application. Therefore, we won't use any functionality, we won't crash, and our service will not be denied to any of our legitimate users. So DDoS attacks and botnets are also another one of those very popular things that happen on the dark web, because you can actually go hire somebody who owns a botnet and say, I want you to go attack this specific target and I'll pay you $50,000 to launch the attack on this day. You know what I mean? So there are so many different ways that you can do this, and it could be done for a variety of different reasons. You never exactly know why there is a company that is trying to attack a target to try to, do a DDoS attack against them or bring their service down. It's just that we do know that it exists and it's a common type of attack vector that takes place. Moving on to the insider threat, which is actually way more common than you would think. So the insider threat is basically somebody that works at the company, right? So somebody works at your company, or somebody works inside of your organization or inside of your group, whatever. They're insider, right? They know what's going on behind the scenes. And so they can give all of that internal information to a group outside of your organization that can then use that privileged information to attack you. So 71% of breaches involve insiders, and this is based on a Verizon report in 2025. And this is, it's a big number. 71% is a really big number. So just think about an employee, a disgruntled employee that was not happy with the way that they were let go, right? Or they were not happy with the way that their retirement was handled, or I don't know, man, some crazy thing where they were just disgruntled, they were unhappy. They left your company unhappy. But now they are leaving your company with information that they have gathered over the last 10 years of working for you. So they have insider knowledge that they can just go to give to a competitor. That could be like the best case scenario. They go work for your competitor. The next thing is that they go actually give it to a malicious group of people who want to take your company down, and then they give them that information to take advantage of you. Now, there's another series of this, and we talked about this again in Security Plus as well, where in that playlist, in the Security Plus training series, we go through a lot of different types of attacks, and one of them is the concept of using a honeypot, which is like an attractive spy, so to speak. And this happens like a lot in espionage and the CIA and the intelligence services and things like that, where they use an attractive agent, so an attractive spy. So man, woman, doesn't matter. They use an attractive spy to get one of the employees on the inside to seduce them, to make them believe that they are, special, whatever. Then some kind of information, some kind of data or video or something that can potentially put this specific target at risk, right? They can make them look bad, they can embarrass them, they can ruin their marriage, whatever. So they get some kind of information, some kind of video or something against this person, and now they have compromised this person, and now they're going to say, okay, you need to now feed me information while you're working at the company. So they may not even have left the company, and they may not be a disgruntled employee, but they were really silly and they were careless and stupid, and so they got compromised, right? They got manipulated by this spy, this honeypot, and for that very reason, now they're being leveraged to give information to the competitor, to give information to a competing country, whatever it is. So that is considered an insider threat. It's not necessarily somebody who's mad at your company. It's just that they were stupid, and so they got manipulated, and now they're being leveraged to give information to a competitor, to give information to the enemies. So it's a really, really big, obviously the number is huge. 71% is a really big number. So the defense against this, there's something called UEBA, or UEBA, and it's the User and Entity Behavior Analytics, which is powered by, of course, AI. So User and Entity Behavior Analytics. So the behavior of the user. Now this specifically would have to do with their behavior in the digital network, right? It can't be their behavior inside of a coffee shop. That's very difficult for you to be able to track using AI. But anything that they do inside of your network digitally, you can actually track using the UEBA series of tools, which is powered by, of course, artificial intelligence. So they can be like, hey, you know what? This person has been messaging this one email address this many times, and this email address is not in our company, and the information they're attaching a lot of files to this email address. They're sending a lot of data to this particular email address, and when we scan the files that they're sending, it actually consists of our intellectual property, or it consists of our client list or something. So it's like, oh, this person's exfiltrating data to a competitor, or they're sending data to our enemies, and this is actually putting us at risk, right? because any interaction that happens inside of your network through the user agreement, when somebody signs to get hired on with your company, you can track all of that interaction. So if that's the case, that means that any email that's sent out, you can actually technically scan through the use of AI, right? Any files that are sent out, you could actually scan through the use of AI. So all of these things are possibilities. These are things that can actually be scanned and tracked by the power of artificial intelligence. The next one is a really big one. Deepfakes and voice cloning is really crazy, and this is being done through AI. So AI in this particular case is actually being used to run these exploits and these threats. And deepfake technology essentially takes your face and puts it on another face, or takes your face and puts it on a video, and then they'll take recordings of your voice. So my voice, I have hundreds of hours of, probably thousands of hours at this point, of footage that's on YouTube. So they could use my voice, clone my voice, and go ahead and launch some kind of an attack against people that I know or against people in my company. This is actually a really big concern for anybody who's in the media in any capacity, because if a picture of you exists, a video of you exists, or your voice out there exists, it is scary how easy it is to replicate your image or your likeness and replicate your voice. So in 2024, a CFO wired $25 million after a Zoom call with a deepfake version of his CEO. This is actually a real thing that happened. So basically, he thought that he was on a Zoom call. So the full story is, the CFO gets an email from the CEO saying, hey, transfer out $25 million. And the CFO goes, okay, well, can I meet you in person so you can give me these instructions in person? And the CEO goes, I'm out of the country and this is kind of urgent, so I can't meet you in person, but why don't we get on Zoom, right? So I'll get on Zoom call with you, video with you, and then I'll confirm the instructions. So he gets on Zoom and he sees a video of his CEO, and the CEO is talking to him and it's like, yeah, this is what I need you to do, da 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 da. And the CFO is like, oh, okay, cool. I'm talking to my CEO, no problem. I'll go ahead and transfer the money. And he transfers the money. And then they find out weeks later, after the money is long gone, that this was never authorized and the CEO was being deepfaked. Like they used a picture of the CEO along with a recording of the voice of the CEO to deepfake and to actually go ahead and create these instructions, fabricate these fake instructions to send out $25 million in a snap of a finger, and all of a sudden the money is gone. So very crazy. The defense against this would be to use AI to actually do voice authentication that can actually detect synthetic audio in 0.3 seconds. Synthetic audio means audio that was not recorded on a microphone. It was audio that was generated through a tool. And I can actually do it in a very quick 0.3 seconds, not even a full second, right? So it can do it really quickly by looking at the signature of the audio file or by looking at patterns in the audio file and noticing that that audio file was not recorded by a human being. It was fabricated. It was generated through an AI generator that creates voice cloning. So very powerful resource right here, especially as we go further and further into the world of manipulation through AI tools and AI generation and deepfakes and voice cloning. Really crazy series of attacks that are taking place. This is probably the one that scares me the most, because elderly people, I see a lot of elderly clients at my day job that go through something like this, and they thought that they were talking to a relative, or they thought that they were talking to a real person because of they recognized the voice, right? Or they recognized the visual that they saw inside of their FaceTime chat, whatever it was. And for that reason, their eyes are already bad. Like, imagine you have an elderly person, they wear these glasses, they can't see, they can barely see, and they can barely hear well. And so they're just going by the signals in their brain saying, oh, this sounds familiar to me. This looks familiar to me. So this must be my daughter. This must be this person that works at the company that manages my money. So just from that, they are like, okay, no problem. And then they send out money, right? And they authorize the transfer out of their account. It's really scary what happens with these things, especially against elderly people. And there's literally groups that have been put together just to do these kinds of scams against elderly people in the United States. They do it from different countries, and there's a video about a group of scammers that were kidnapped, basically. So it's like they kidnapped these girls and they forced them to do all of these malicious attacks and all of these social engineering scams and all these things against people in the United States. And we have no idea that these people were kidnapped to do this, right? And they're being held at gunpoint to do this. You just think that these people are evil and they're trying to take advantage of you, but they're actually really being manipulated to do all of those things. So it's really, really, really crazy. And that goes beyond deepfakes. They're not even using technology at that point. They're just using evil tactics of, kidnapping girls and forcing them to do malicious things. So this is a really scary one. Like, this specific social engineering and what's going on with deepfakes and voice cloning is one of the scariest ones that takes place. And just in the event that it is actually a deepfake or voice that's been cloned, you can use AI voice authentication to actually detect whether or not that voice that is inside of that video is synthetic and if it was generated through technology instead of just being recorded. Next, we have cloud misconfigurations, and the name just by itself implies that it's not necessarily a malicious action. It's just that misconfigurations can be considered a vulnerability. So in 2019, happened in Capital One. Snapchat happened in 2024. 40% of breaches in general are done through misconfigurations, and it could be something that, the person who's managing, they were administering their cloud environment, right? They didn't put the proper permissions on a storage bucket. So let's say the S3 buckets on Amazon, on AWS, they're basically simple storage systems, right? So it's just to store files and to store whatever media, anything. And so if those things are misconfigured, right? So there was one that I don't remember who the company was, but again, we talked about it in the Security Plus playlist. Essentially, they misconfigured their S3 bucket on Amazon and it was public facing. So anybody that had the IP address could just go in there and just take whatever was inside of that bucket and take files out and take media out or put media in, right? Like put just data in there. So it's like it could be instructions to transfer money out, and then they replace those instructions with an instruction that has their bank account. And it's like, all right, cool. Now we're transferring money out to the hacker's bank account. So it's actually really, really basic. This is probably one of the most simple things that should not exist. It just happens to exist because human beings, again, can be careless, or they can be absent-minded, or they could just be downright stupid. So it just depends on the reason behind the misconfiguration. But the problem is, it actually still exists. 40% of breaches take place because of misconfigurations, which is really, really crazy when you think about it. So the defense against this would be to use a CSPM tool with AI that auto-remediates bad IAM roles. So it's a management tool, basically. It's a management tool that has AI associated with it that auto-remediates. So remediation is basically fixing. It's like a fancy way of saying that it's going to fix something. So an IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. So an identity would be somebody that works in your company. Access is the permissions that they have, right? So if somebody who's working in your company goes and gives access to an S3 bucket on Amazon to the public, that is an IAM issue. It's a misconfiguration. Now, the identity in that particular case is the public, right? So if it may not even be the user that we're worried about. We're looking at a specific resource, for example, this S3 bucket that is storing a bunch of sensitive information. The identities that can access that bucket would be everybody at large, right? Because if it's public facing, that means everybody can access it. And their access would be that they can download stuff, they can upload stuff, right? They can copy stuff, they can delete stuff. That's all access. So what you want in that case, if it's sensitive information inside of this S3 bucket, you only want certain identities to be able to access it. So that's what the I would stand for. So certain identities in your company should be limited to accessing the information inside of that bucket. Now, the people that can get there, the identities that can get into that bucket, some of them should have permissions to copy files. Some of them should have permissions only to read files. Some of them should have permissions to upload files. So there's different layers of access that you can give to people to a specific resource. So when you're looking at an AI tool that will automatically scan the permissions of a resource and say, oh, you know what, this shouldn't be public, number one. And number two, based on the information I've been given, only 5 people should even have access to this. And out of those 5 people, only 2 of them should be able to read and write to this. And then everybody else should have read-only permissions, right? So that's what it can do. This is this management tool that can automatically scan all of the resources in your network and say, oh, you know what, these groups of resources, these groups of assets should be completely private. Only 3 people should have access to these. These 20% of groups or these 20% of assets can be viewed by the public, and the rest of these assets could be viewed by any employee that works inside of our company. That's kind of it, right? So you have to give it the rules for it to be able to enforce, and then based on the rules that it has, it'll go ahead and it'll auto-remediate. It'll auto-fix all of the rules and all of the access permissions to those things so that only people that should have access to them do have access to them. The next one would be the source of those botnets we were talking about earlier, which is the IoT devices. So IoT stands for Internet of Things. And so basically any device that can connect to the internet can be a part of that botnet, right? So because if it connects to the internet, it has an IP address. So for example, your fridge. So if you have a fridge that connects to the internet to send you notifications to your cell phone when its filter needs to be replaced, or if it's low on, I don't know, whatever, right? So the fridge connects to your cell phone to send you notifications. Your microwave can connect to your cell phone to send you notifications. Your cameras, people have a bunch of cameras around their house that sends them these little dings that, hey, you know, there's movement in front of your door. Your vacuum, your robot vacuum that will clean your house, that can be connected to the internet. Literally anything inside your house, your TV, all of these things are connected to the internet. So this is considered an IoT device, right? It's not necessarily a laptop or a cell phone or a computer, but it is connected to the internet. Therefore, it has an IP address. Now, these are also considered to be what? Smart devices. So Mirai is a robotics platform. Essentially, it helps with robotics automation and to be able to enable any kind of robotic device to reliably perform automation tasks. And it could be changing conditions. It could be your thermostat, right? You could have a thermostat in your house that is connected again to your cell phone. And then before you get home, you're like, yeah, I need you to change the temperature so that our house is 75 degrees, whatever, right? So all of these things, because they're connected to the internet, they're considered an IoT device. Therefore, they get an IP address. Therefore, they can actually be maliciously used inside of a botnet. So when you have some kind of device like this, the key here, this is a configuration issue. You need to make it so that it's not publicly accessible by anybody outside of your specific network. So the only device that should be able to access your thermostat should be your cell phone, right? The only device that can open the garage door should be your cell phone. It shouldn't be any other device that can find that IP address. That's a configuration issue. So if it's public facing, which is what most of these things are, I've done several different demonstrations of this where you can just do a smart search in Google, like an advanced search. We call it Google hacking. You do an advanced search in Google where you find the IP addresses of public facing webcams, and now you can just watch somebody's webcam. Because it's public facing, you can watch it through Google. It's crazy. It's really, really crazy to think about. And it's a breach of privacy and all of those things. But I mean, I've done it so many times by now that I feel like there are certain ones, the ones that I've looked at are, at these public locations. I haven't gone into somebody's bedroom or whatever, but I'm sure if their bedroom cam was public facing, I'm sure you could find it. So that's the thing. That's what's scary about this. So anyways, I'm kind of digressing and going down a rabbit hole here. But basically, if your device, your IoT smart device, if the IP address of that device is public facing and it's not limited to your cell phone or to the people inside of your household, then it can now become a zombie. in Mirai 2.0. And Mirai 2.0 is just kind of like a clever version of saying that any software or any system that can actually manage robotics can take advantage of your fridge, or it can take advantage of your devices inside your household because they're public facing, and we can just use them as a zombie and make them do whatever we want to do for our botnet purposes. So the defense for this would be to segment your network, to limit access to your network to only authorized devices, plus to use AI to fingerprint all of your devices and make sure that, again, whoever is accessing them is actually a part of that network segment. They have been authenticated and have been pre-authorized to be able to do these things. Your device can have a specific fingerprint, right? And an AI tool can scan that fingerprint in advance and say, okay, so based on my data, based on my information, I've used a series of different data sets to say that this is Hank's cell phone. And so only Hank's cell phone is going to be able to access the devices inside of this network segment for my, my TV and my laptop and my, what do I have here? I don't really have very many smart devices inside my household. I only have like TVs and a couple of cameras and things like that. So I'm a little bit paranoid. I don't want devices that can just be connected to the internet randomly, because also the security on these things is like not up to par. Like a lot of them don't get automatically patched. So I'm just paranoid. I'm overly paranoid. So I don't have smart devices inside my house. My fridge is old and my camera, it's not old. It's like really nice, but it's not a smart fridge. You know what I mean? Whatever. You get what I'm saying. But yeah, that's it. So threat number 9 is the IoT botnet and the smart device attacks. And of course, you can use AI to fingerprint those devices to make sure that only the devices within a given network segment can actually communicate with each other. All right, finally moving on to our last one, which is the state-sponsored advanced persistent threat. And this is a big one. So if we go to the MITRE attack framework, let me actually show you that real quick. This, my dear friend, is the MITRE attack framework, the attack matrix. And this is a list of all of the attacks and techniques that have been used and documented up until this point by a variety of different organizations to launch attacks against companies, to launch attacks against governments. So there's a lot of different things that you can find from this website. It's free. You can find it on attack.mitre.org right here. And it's very, very, very handy. We've used this specific attack matrix on dozens of different videos inside of this channel, and it's a great source for threat intelligence. Now, one of the things that you can do is when you go up here, so there's something called CTI, Cyber Threat Intelligence. Underneath that, there's a tab for groups. So if we click on groups, we get to see all of the groups that exist. Look at them. There's hundreds of them. So there's a bunch of different groups, right, that exist. And these groups a lot of times have been given some kind of an alias, either because they named themselves or somebody gave them the name. For example, Akira, right? So you have all of these different names. Now, the ones that don't have names are given an APT ID, an Advanced Persistent Threat Group. So APT1, APT12, 16, 17, and it just goes on and on and on, right? So these are the groups that either have not declared a name for themselves or they weren't given any kind of a nickname. So they're just known as this specific group. But when we click on them, we get to see all of the different campaigns or techniques that they've actually been involved with, that they did something, therefore that's been associated with their specific APT group. So Mimikatz, for example, I'm sure Mimikatz has been used by hundreds of different groups because it's a very powerful tool for credential dumping. But you can use Mimikatz to look, these are all the different groups that have used Mimikatz, right? So this is a really, really, really powerful resource. The MITRE attack framework, the MITRE attacks matrix is a really, really powerful framework for cyber threat intelligence and finding out different things about attacks that take place in the world or have taken place in the world and have been documented, right? So now we know what an APT is, what an advanced persistent threat is, which is basically a group of attackers, right? So APT-39, one of the several names for cyber espionage activity conducted by the Iranian Ministry of Intelligence and Security, MOIS, through the front company Rana Intelligence Computing since at least 2014. It has primarily targeted the travel, hospitality, academic, and telecommunications industries in Iran and across Asia, Africa, and Europe, and North America to track individuals and entities considered to be a threat by the Ministry of Intelligence. So that's basically what they're known for, right? So they have all these different things that have been categorized or characterized to define this group, to build the profile for this group, but there's no specific name for them. So it's just APT-39. But technically, I guess there is a specific group. So the Ministry of Intelligence and Security, which is the Iranian ministry. So we know that it's been associated with Iran, which is my home country. So Iran and across Asia. So it's really crazy to think about. But there's several, dozens of groups that are associated with Russia and China and Iran and like all these countries that when you look at the United Nations or when you look at North America or any of these quote unquote allied countries, when you look at these westernized allied countries, they have a handful of countries that are like, okay, North Korea is one of them, Iran is one of them, Russia is one of them, China is one of them. I think Venezuela is on there, Cuba might be on there, but there's all these these countries that are flagged as, okay, these are countries of note. We need to be watching them a little bit closely because there are so many things that have been associated with this country as far as attack campaigns that have been done against a variety of other countries. So this just happens to be one of them. And this is the resource, right? This is the resource that you would use to find, because MITRE is a really big name in security. It's a global name. A lot of different countries use it. Therefore, a lot of different countries feed information into it. So we have this giant database of threat intelligence that we can use to protect ourselves as well as the companies that we work for and the countries that we live in. I've done several videos on MITRE and how to use MITRE to build defense campaigns, as well as how to use MITRE to emulate threat vectors and attack vectors if you want to do penetration testing to try to see how you can emulate, for example, APT-39, how you can emulate them to launch some of the attacks that they've launched in the past. So in this case, our example is China. So China's Salt Typhoon that was in 2024 and 2025 mostly. It's an APT group, right, that compromised U.S. telecommunications for years. And it's just a group out of China. We're not saying that China as a country did it. It's just that there was a group, an APT group out of China called Salt Typhoon that used various attacks against the United States telecommunications. So the defense against anything like this is to use threat intelligence platforms like the MITRE attack matrix that have been fed by global AI models. And so you would use the API of MITRE, right? So here's where it becomes interesting, right? You use the API of MITRE, the attack matrix that we just looked at, and all of the data that's on that website. You integrate that with the API of your favorite AI, let's say Grok, and then you integrate that with the API of your endpoint detection and response security tool. So now you have three APIs that are connected to each other. So Grok will then reference anything that's happening inside of your network with the data on the MITRE attack matrix, and it'll say, hey, you know what? I notice a connection here. I think what's happening on our network is this specific attack that was done, let's say, by Salt Typhoon, right? And so it'll stop it in its tracks. This is where it gets really interesting. Like, this is where it becomes really advanced defense mechanisms, is that you integrate the APIs of these various entities to talk to each other so that it can actually go ahead and do really advanced security. And then what's really nice about it is that it doesn't go to sleep. It's running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it doesn't have the same flaws and faults that a human being does. Therefore, it most likely will not miss a lot of the things that the naked eye of a human being can miss. Okay, now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to give you an example of how AI can actually be extremely powerful and do certain things that a human being might miss. Now, this example is simplistic, so I will notify you in advance, because I'm sure that there are some people that will look at this and they'll be like, oh, I could have noticed that. But maybe, if there are thousands of these little things happening inside of your network logs, you might be able to miss them. So that's kind of the key thing here, is that if it was a one-off, if it was just this one thing that I'm going to show you, for sure you could probably just break it down and kind of try to figure out where there might be some kind of a malicious activity. However, if it's 100 of them, if it's 1,000 of them, it's a very good chance that you'll miss some of them. So what we're going to be doing is just looking at the power of these tools, or the power of AI and what it can do for you in comparison to the traditional tools. So if we look at, endpoint detection and response tools, their whole job is to respond, right? It's supposed to detect and it's supposed to respond to something, or at least help you detect and respond to something. A security information and event manager, also known as a SIM, like Splunk or QRadar or something like that, it's also reactive. It's really like the event has taken place, somebody is attacking you, something is going on, and now you're reacting to what's going on. The purpose of using AI is to be predictive or proactive, where hopefully the AI tool will actually be able to look at the activity inside of a network, and before an exploit has been launched, or before somebody has successfully gotten into your network, they've successfully hacked into your network, before that takes place, it can predict what's about to happen, notify you, and maybe even stop it in its tracks. So what we're going to be looking at right now is looking at a zero-day exploit, right? This is specifically just an example. This is like a safe version of something that has actually happened before maliciously, but we're doing a safe version of it. And I'll show you where the modification to make this fully malicious, or to make it just kind of like a safe thing, can take place. And then we're going to put it inside of an AI sandbox, mainly basically just typing it into Grok chat. So I'm just going to drop the exploit inside of Grok chat, and then I'm going to give it a prompt, which is very specific type of prompt, so that Grok will do exactly what I want it to do. And this is kind of leading into our next episode, which is going to be on prompt engineering. And then so we're going to give it a very specific prompt, and then we're going to give it the exploit, and then it's going to help us analyze the exploit. And we're going to, all of this is going to set the stage for what we're going to be looking at in the next episode and in the future episodes after that. So we're going to be doing a live demo right now. First, the exploit. So this is the exploit itself, right? This is the source code that the AI is going to be analyzing for us. This is a resemblance of a Folina exploit that actually had been launched successfully previously, and we're just kind of taking a piece of it, customizing it, so that we can go ahead and use it as our safe indication of compromise, and have our AI go ahead and analyze this for us. Now, if you don't know anything about HTML, this is going to look a little bit intimidating, right? If you know HTML, you probably know exactly what you're looking at already. And the biggest piece about this, kind of like the meat on the bones right here, is this piece right here, which is essentially a hyperlink, right? This is the behind the scenes of what a hyperlink looks like. So on the screen, if this wasn't the code version, you would basically just see click to run diagnostic, right? And then this would be a clickable sentence. And then all you would see is this. But once you click on this, this is going to run. This whole piece is going to run in the background, okay? And this whole thing, for the most part, this piece of it isn't really the malicious intention. This piece is where the malicious intention comes in. Now, if you've gone through any of my other videos, you already should recognize this as a base 64 encoded string of text, which basically looks like gibberish, right? But we can make anything base 64 encoded. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and show you what that's supposed to look like. And we have a tool called CyberChef that we use for encoding and decoding. This is available for free, and you literally go to Google, type CyberChef, and it's the first link that'll pop up. CyberChef has a lot of different operations, also known as recipes. And so this specific operation that we're using inside of this recipe is we're just converting something into base 64, right? I'm converting whatever my input is to base 64, and I should get a base 64 output. For example, this right here. So this is my input. I have, this is a malicious string of code. Now, this could be anything. It could literally be a giant block of code written in Python or whatever language, JavaScript, something like that, right? But it would be the input. And then the output is this right here. We have this full output right here that is the gibberish that we saw earlier, right? So instead of typing this is a malicious string of code, or instead of typing out your actual code that you want to be executed, you type out the code and then you encode it to base 64 as your first layer. I mean, you could do so many different versions of this. You could go from base 64 to hexadecimal or back and forth, or you can do so many other types of encoding to this to make it really undetectable or very difficult to detect. But just for our first layer, we're just kind of messing around with encoding this text right here. But this is what the source code, quote unquote, this is what the source code is. So when we actually go ahead and type it into our block of text here, this is what we would end up seeing. We end up seeing this giant block of gibberish right here. And to the naked eye, you have no idea what that is. And if you don't know how to recognize base 64 encoded strings, you also wouldn't know what this is. You would probably just glance at it and move right past it. You wouldn't even notice that that is something that could potentially be malicious. So what we're going to do now is we're going to combine this with a specific command we're going to give our AI friend. And here's our AI friend. It's Grok. So what are we going to tell Grok? First, I'm going to give it the prompt that I want to set the context of what I want it to do, right? So it'll be something like this. Okay, that took longer than it should have for me to type this, but I mean, you probably just saw literally like 2 seconds of typing, because I will go ahead in the edit and do a little bit of a time lapse, but that's basically the command that we are giving it, right? So you're an AI-powered cybersecurity sandbox. Analyze this code snippet for potential vulnerabilities, flag any risks, predict associated CVEs, which is the common vulnerability and exploit ID that would be associated with it, if it matches known patterns, and explain in under 100 words. Be predictive like a real threat intel tool. And then we hold down shift, press enter one more time, and then we'll do this snippet like that, and then press shift enter one more time, and then paste our snippet of code that we have right here. So we have the full command like that. We have the full prompt like that. Press enter, and there you go. So now it's going to start running it. And immediately it notices MSD RCE Felina pattern. So MSDT RCE, remote code execution, remote command execution, Felina pattern is what it noticed. The CVE ID is the exact match, which is CVE 2022-30190. So I could literally go ahead and search Google for that, and it will find the NIST article for this, the NIST listing for this, and it's a 7.8 high score CVSS, and it gives us the explanation to this whole thing. A remote code execution vulnerability exists when da-da-da-da-da is installed. So moving on, right? So it gives us that the risk is that there's a base 64 blob decodes to malicious command, clickable link triggers the MSDT URI handler in unpatched offline, etc. And then that's pretty much the full explanation, right? So if we ask to give it a longer explanation to us, it would probably even be able to decode this base 64 encoded portion of it and give us more information. So now check this out, right? So now it gives us potential follow-up commands. So explain Felina exploit details, relate log4 shell vulnerability, add mitigation steps, right? These are just some automated commands that it's generating for us. So now it can say, okay, point out the base 64 encoded portion and tell me what it is. Let's just do that, right? So now this is the base 64 encoded version, and that's the portion right there that it detected. The decoded version of it, this is malicious string of code, right? It's a placeholder string indicating where real attackers inject PowerShell, CMD, or reverse shell payloads. in live Felina exploits. See, like, and then it gives you further suggestions for other commands that you can run to get more and more information. So this is just a very simple surface level example of how we can go ahead and use AI to aid us in analyzing source code. You know what I mean? And so when we get to the portion of this course where we start integrating our AI tools with our endpoint detection response tools, we can actually literally connect the AI tool with our logs from the endpoint detection response, and then give the AI an advanced command like, okay, you're an AI powered cybersecurity agent. Your job is to look at all of the log files that come in, analyze them, and detect any potential malicious activity that may take place. If you think that it's malicious activity that is ranked critical or higher, right? Or severe or higher, or whatever. If you think that it's malicious enough that it's going to affect our network, you have permission to block that traffic. You have permission to do X, Y, and Z. And then from there, you just let it run, right? That's kind of the command prompt that you're going to engineer with it. And then it's going to start looking at everything else inside of your log items. And one by one, it's just going to start going through everything, and it's going to do what you told it to do. So really, really powerful stuff. This is kind of just like an entry-level version of looking at it, but that's essentially what we're going to be doing. Once we've done the connection between the API of the AI to the API of whatever the tool is, you're going to end up just running similar exercises and then giving it advanced, detailed instructions that this is who you are, this is what you're going to be doing, and this is the source of information, the input that you're going to be looking at. And then from here on, these are all the permissions that I give you for actions to take. And the bare minimum is going to alert me when you notice something. And then at maximum, you're allowed to block vulnerabilities or exploits or hazards, risks of this level and higher. You're allowed to take action on my behalf, because if anything comes at a level higher than a 7.8, right, or if it has remote command execution, which is what RCE stands for. So it's like they can actually, if they execute this and if it works successfully, they can actually execute remote code from wherever they are, right? They can inject PowerShell or command or reverse shell payloads and actually execute malicious commands and take over all of our systems and networks and things like that. So if you detect something like this, then you are free, you are permitted to act on my behalf and completely block this, and then make a report and then alert me, etc. So the prediction value of this is 95% exploit success on pre-June 2022 patches. So any system that is not patched as of June 2022 will actually be susceptible to this. You can actually launch this attack with a 95% success rate. And there's a phishing vector, there's a patch plus a disability, MSDT URI that's available, etc. And then finally gave us 78 words as the final count for the number of words that it took to give us our explanation, which is, again, extremely useful, very, very powerful. And then you can then use this information to do further research or to create a next action step, an action plan for yourself. Okay, moving on to our official interactive segment. So now I'm going to share 5 real examples with you, okay? These are either going to be emails or websites or blurbs or URLs, whatever. You're going to see 5 examples, okay? And then you don't necessarily have to vote in the comments, because we're actually going to review them as well. But I do, before I get to the portion where I give you the answer and with things like that, I do want you to pause the screen or pause the video and kind of analyze it and, come up with your version of the answer. So these are just the headlines of what we're going to be reviewing. We have 5 specific examples, and then I'm going to show you the actual examples themselves. And then you can tell me whether or not these things are threats, if they're actual malicious, or if they're passable, okay? So from the scan right here, you might be able to already tell what we're going to be looking at. And just from this, you might be able to already tell which ones are malicious. But let's go ahead and look at the details of these things. Okay, example 1. This is an email from PayPal. The subject line says, PayPal action required immediately. It's from PayPal Security, no reply at paypalsecurity.com. The body truncated, basically just saying kind of condensed. This is what it says. A purchase of $1299.99 was made on your account for an iPhone 16 Pro Max. If this wasn't you, click below to secure your account now. And then the text says secure my account, but the link behind it is the paypalsecurity.com update session, etc., etc. This link expires in 15 minutes. So there's some urgency on here as well. So go ahead and pause it. We'll analyze this in depth, but go ahead and take a look at this, see how many red flags, if any, you actually notice on this email, and then we'll go ahead and analyze it. Okay, so after analysis, was it safe or was it a scam? The answer should have been a scam because there were multiple red flags. And so here's what we got. Number one, the domain itself was not PayPal. It was PayPal, and then there was a number one. So PayPal1security.com. So the number one instead of the letter L, because at first glance, if you didn't pay attention to it, you would have not have noticed that it's a PayPal and then the number one, especially if you're looking at it on your cell phone. The font on cell phones, because sometimes it's very small and sometimes it's just a different type of font. The number one doesn't have that initial little squiggle on top of it. It just looks like a one. So that's actually a very big red flag right there. Then there's the urgency and the countdown, right? So there's urgent, you need to respond right away in the actual subject. At the end of it, the link expires after 15 minutes. The sender is not at paypal.com. It's actually very sketch. They could have a bunch of different email addresses, but it should be at paypal.com. It shouldn't be paypalsecurity.com. That's not how it works. It's just paypal.com. The link hover and the display text, that portion of it is kind of sketchy as well, right? So if you hover over the link and then you look at the actual display text itself, it doesn't match, right? The whatever you're hovering over and the actual display text of the link, they don't match. The link itself is leading you somewhere that seems like it's going somewhere that's not PayPal, or seems like it's going somewhere that's not what the hover link, what the actual, what we call the hook. No, not the hook. Good Lord, I forget what it's called, but the text itself, the hyperlink itself, the text version of it, there's a specific phrase that I'm totally drawing a blank on, but that was very different from the actual display text, right? So that's very different. No personalization, so there's no name associated with it. That's another thing where it's like they would at least use your username. They'll say, hey, Hank Hackerson, your account has recently approved this transaction for an iPhone purchase, etc. And they should have access to your username. If you're getting an email from PayPal and it doesn't have your username and they're saying, hey, you just approved the purchase, it's like, what the heck are you talking about? You're not even referring to me. Like, that's another red flag that easily should be noticed. So for 5 different reasons, this was a scam email. So there we go. Reason number 1, right? The domain at the very top, the from domain, no reply at PayPal. It's PayPal1security.com, and especially it's not PayPal.com, so that's another thing. So 2 in 1 right here. Action required immediately, right? They're trying to force urgency on this. There's no username that's been associated in the body. It's immediately just starting out saying a purchase of so-and-so was made. If this wasn't you, click below to secure your account now. Even more urgency. Now is in all caps. And then secure my account, which I would assume is the hyperlink text, right? This is different. It's going to paypalsecurity.com, update session, etc. So this isn't even going to any kind of what should be a secure my account kind of thing. It's like updating what exactly are we updating in this particular case? And then finally, this link expires in 15 minutes. So more urgency and a deadline that's associated with it. So for so many different reasons, this email address is a spam email address. And of course, the Google AI that is monitoring all of the emails that comes through your inbox scans for stuff like this, and it automatically sends it to spam or sends it to trash. So more often than not, we don't see emails like this, but it's the power of AI that actually does it for us. They have amazing filters on the Google Gmail AI that actually looks at the emails that come to our inbox, and 99.9% of the emails that are spam don't actually make it to our normal inbox. And that's actually very important. And then when you sign up for let's say an autoresponder service that you want to send out promotional emails to people, to your prospect list, and you craft an email that has too much urgency in it, or you craft an email that doesn't have personalization in it, or a variety of different things, the domain of the from address is not your business email address, or X, Y, and Z. There's just so many different reasons. But their AI for the autoresponder, most autoresponder services, their internal AI will be like, hey, listen, this email is not going to get past the spam filters because it seems really spammy. And it may not be spammy. You may be a legitimate business or a consultant or somebody who's selling a legitimate service, but because your email sounds too spammy, the AI filter from the autoresponder service is going to say, hey, let me tell you, this is not going to get past the spam filters of most email providers because you just sound too spammy. You sound like a scam, like if somebody who's trying to do a scam. So for what it's worth, if you're doing this from the perspective of the sender and you have a legitimate email, you should, or a legitimate business, you should look at your email and make sure that it actually doesn't sound overly hyped, right? You're not selling too hard, and you have more customization in there, and you are referencing the name of the lead, and etc., just to make sure that you can actually get past the spam filters. Okay, so here's our second example. This is a Slack message, right? Slack is a messaging service, kind of like a Teams type of a service that is for companies to be able to interact with each other inside of their own network, between their employees and etc. So the channel itself is the general channel, right? So it's not an internal channel for management or anything like that. It's like everybody in the company. The person that supposedly it's coming from, or I guess that's a hint that I just gave away, is the CEO, Jennifer Chen. Now, Jennifer Chen should have a verified checkmark because it's the CEO, and you would assume that their identity has been verified and their user profile has been verified on Slack for everybody inside of the company to know that it's actually coming from Jennifer Chen. So there is no checkmark. That's kind of like a really big flag right there. Timestamp is 6:55 p.m. on a Friday. So this, okay, fine. Maybe, you know, the people on the West Coast are getting an email that was sent from the East Coast or something, and they're several hours ahead, so fine, it's 6:55 p.m. But usually, if it's a company, anything after 5 o'clock is like, why are you even messaging us on the work line? Like, most people are off. They're not exempt employees that are on salary. They're on hourly. They're not going to be looking at their messages after hours, right? They shouldn't be. That's like illegal. It's like a what is it, labor law kind of an issue. It's like, if I'm off hours, don't message me if I'm not on salary, right? That's like a really big flag right there as well. I'm kind of giving all the hints to you on this one. But so here's the message. Hey team, urgent client gift needed before closing of business. Can someone grab 50 times $100 Apple gift cards from the store? I'll Venmo you right now. Send codes to my personal email, jchen.personal@gmail.com. I mean, how many freaking red flags are inside of this body of message right here? It's insane. So, okay, fine. This one, all right, you might miss it because you didn't pay attention to the check mark. This one, okay, fine, you might miss it because maybe you are a salary employee and you don't really notice if it's after business hours. But then, okay, urgent client gift needed. It's coming from the CEO. So why is the CEO asking everybody in the company to provide the money for a client gift? The CEO should be taking care of that themselves and then expensing it. So that's giant red flag right there. Can someone grab 50 $100 Apple gift cards from the store? Okay, so you're asking us to spend $5,000 is what you're asking me to spend right now. Okay, I'll Venmo you right now. Definitely a red flag. Send the codes to my personal email, not my work email. So like every single line is a red flag right here. So obviously I gave the answer away. You should already know that this is all bad right here. But now we know exactly what it is. So let's look at like the official analysis of this thing. So obviously, yes, it's a scam. Now, the red flags are, number one, gift cards in general. When you see gift cards, it is the number one business email compromise red flag. So anytime that there's, oh, buy a gift card and send me a gift card, that means that that email address has been compromised, that user profile has been compromised. The timing, right? Friday evening, right? Like 6:55, 7 p.m. pretty much, well after business hours. Why is this even being sent to the group Slack? Personal Gmail, not the company domain. That's another one. There's no @ mention, no thread or anything like that. It's just being sent to everybody. And the verified badge is missing. And then just for good measure, why is the CEO of the company asking everybody else in the company to pay for gift cards so that they can send it to a client? The CEO should be doing that. They should not be asking the brand new hire that's inside the general Slack channel to go make a $5,000 purchase for gift cards. That's just insanity. So many red flags in this particular example, and you should have probably already noticed that. Okay, this one is a little bit more subtle, okay? So this is a bank login page. The URL in the browser is this, right? The page has the Chase logo, username, password, enter 6-digit code from your SMS, which is right after the password field, and then the button verify and log in. And that's basically it, right? So you've been sent to this browser. Now, let's say this is a part of an email that you received, etc., to verify a transaction, maybe, right? It's like, verify this transaction. We suspect a transaction that doesn't look like it matches your user history. It doesn't match your transaction history, okay? And then you're sent to this web page, and the web page has the Chase logo on it. It has a username, password field, etc. So if you were to analyze this, what would you say are some of the red flags that pop up on this page? So it is a scam. Now, there are multiple reasons for it being a scam. Number one, the SMS code after the password is an indication of what's called credential harvesting. So credential harvesting is essentially when they're trying to harvest a bunch of credentials so that they can go ahead and actually log in as that client or as that user. Now, the issue behind this is that usually an SMS code should not be sent after the actual password. The SMS code should be sent after they initially input their username or their email address, and then they'll get the SMS code, they'll enter the SMS code, and then they'll be prompted to enter their password. So if the SMS code is coming after the password, that's an indication that this is actually malicious, right? And again, it shouldn't be on the page anyways. It should be something that you press enter, and then right after you've pressed enter, it's like, all right, multi-factor authentication, send us the one-time passcode that we just sent you. Then we have the URL itself, which is not actually chase.com, right? It was chase onlinebanking.com login. That's what the URL was. So it's not chase.com. That's an issue. There's no padlock. Now, we can't really see this, but there should be a padlock typically that is on the domain name. So if we go over here, specifically on my docs, right, and we see this right here, right? Usually there's actually a padlock that's on this piece right here. On Chrome, it doesn't actually show the padlock, but if there was no padlock, meaning if this did not have TLS or SSL certificates on it, it would actually show a padlock with a line through it and a red marker, like it would actually be a red logo saying that this website is not secure. So for a variety of different reasons, that would actually be one of the things that we would use as an indicator saying that, okay, you know what, this does not seem like it's a secure domain name. And then we have the no two-factor authentication push app option. Like, this is actually something that happens on the screen right after you enter your password, which is, again, one of the big indicators, because two-factor authentication happens after you do your login, after you press login, right? You press login and then you're prompted, okay, we just sent you a text, go ahead and verify this code that we sent. It's not on the same screen. It's very, very fishy. And then the real Chase uses push notifications. It doesn't use SMS post login. Now, if you're a Chase user, you would know that. But if you're not a Chase user, you're like, oh, okay, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. So if you actually have a Chase account and we went through this, this would probably be one of the biggest indicators for you saying, oh, you know what? They actually don't, they use push notifications. They don't use SMS. Push notifications is you press enter on the login after you've entered your password, and then a notification pops up on your phone saying, hey, we are logging in from a device that we don't recognize. Was this you? And then you say it was either you or if it wasn't you. And instead of trying to do a SMS text message, right? So all of that stuff, all very, very fishy. So because of all these various reasons, this is an indicator of compromise. Now, an AI tool could actually scan this web page for you, and based on its information, it could say, well, the URL is not Chase. The SMS code after the password is fishy. There's no padlock, or at the very least, it'll be like, okay, well, it does say HTTPS, so this specific piece it might not notice based on the permissions that you've been given. The 2FA push app option, the real Chase uses push notifications. They don't use SMS post login. Like, all of these things could actually be scanned by your preferred AI tool and let you know whether or not this page is legit or if it's a scam page. Okay, so here's another email example. So the email subject says Microsoft Teams support mandatory update. The from address is teams-support@microsoft365-online.com. The body says your Microsoft Teams client requires a security update. Join this mandatory session. Topic is Team Security Patch Deployment. Time November 11, 2025, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then join the Zoom meeting is the hyperlink text. And then the actual link points to a Zoom session. And that's the meeting ID with the password ABC123. And then IT Security Microsoft is the signature. So we look at this, and there should be some things that pop out to you. So pause the video real quick and try to notice for sure which things, if they haven't already, which things pop out to you. So it's a scam. Number one, if you haven't already been able to tell some of the reasons. So there's a Zoom link that's coming from Microsoft Teams. Now, if you've ever used Microsoft Teams has video chat, right? They have video meetings. They have a chat box or like a messenger, an instant messenger. And inside of that instant messenger, you can make phone calls to people. You can make video calls to people. You can hold meetings instead of using Zoom to hold your video meeting. So why would they, if it's Microsoft Teams, if it's supposed to be coming from Microsoft Teams, why are they sending a Zoom link for the video meeting? That's like a really big red flag, right? It says brand confusion right here, but it's like if you've ever used Microsoft Teams, you should already know that Microsoft Teams has their own video messenger and their video conference service. So why the heck are they using Zoom, their competitor? That just doesn't sound right. The sender domain is not Microsoft.com. It was Microsoft365-online.com. So it could potentially be Microsoft 365. That could be a domain. But if it's Microsoft 365-online.com, that is a big red flag right there. And then the calendar invite did not exist. That's another thing. It's like, join this right away. That's what the email says. That's kind of crazy, right? Join this mandatory session right away. It's like, you need to do this mandatory update. You got to require security update. Join this mandatory session right now. You got to do it right now. It's like, what are you talking about, bro? If it's supposed to be a mandatory session, there should be a calendar invite that's taking place. And I need to go ahead and schedule this. I can't just drop everything and just join this meeting. The password in the URL, which is really sketch. So Zoom.us actually allows you to put a password for the meeting in the URL, but Microsoft never puts a password in the URL. And then the other part of it is that it's ABC123. It's like the most basic password that exists. So that's another indication that this is spam. And finally, there's urgency without any kind of context, right? Usually, if there's some kind of update that takes place, the IT team will say, on this date, we're going to update your system. And then tomorrow, like the day before, right? So they'll send you one a week in advance. And then the day before the update, they'll be like, tomorrow we're going to be updating the systems. And then they usually never do it during business hours because they don't want to disrupt business operations. So they'll do it after business hours. And the instructions will be, don't turn off your computer, which you shouldn't be doing anyways. If you're at work, you want to log out, you want to restart, but you don't want to actually turn off the computer because it needs to be connected to the network so that they can actually do updates outside of business hours, which is usually how it works. This is how usually updates are done in IT because, again, they don't want to disrupt business operations. So for a variety of different reasons, that, again, was a malicious email. And if you had an AI filtering system, it would have been notified in advance and it would have not even made it through to your inbox because there are so many things about that are, they're just scammy. There are red flags all over the place. And of course, AI notices these kinds of things and actually prevents it from taking place. And our final example is a text message. So you received an SMS message from this phone number right here. and the Wells Fargo alert system comes in and says your account is locked due to suspicious activity, verify identity to avoid closure, and then they give you a domain, and then reply stop to unsubscribe. And that's it. That's the entirety of the message that you received. So how is this malicious if it's malicious? Okay, so here we go. It is a scam, obviously. So all of them were scams. So the URL itself is not wellsfargo.com. It's actually not a shortened URL. It's a different URL. I don't know why I put shortened, but it's not wellsfargo.com, right? It was Wells Fargo alerts, something like that. So that is a red flag just by itself right there. The sender is a phone number. It's not Wells Fargo. Now, here's another thing, right? Most companies, when they send you a text message, if they're sending you any kind of alert message or anything like that, it doesn't even come from a phone number that's a normal phone number. It's usually like a 5-digit number that is the sender. So for the most part, you're not going to get any kind of a phone number, like a normal phone number that's going to be sending out a message to you. It's like a 5-digit number that sends out the messages to you. Or at the very least, their caller ID will say Wells Fargo on there so that you can notice that it's coming from Wells Fargo. But this is also very easy to spoof because somebody could just make their caller ID identity to read Wells Fargo, and then you think that it's coming from Wells Fargo when it's actually not. The next one is the threat of the account closure. Now, this actually has happened to me a lot. I've received a lot of messages from my banking app as well as where I house some of my investments. And they're like, yeah, your transfer of X, Y, and Z dollars has been authorized. If you didn't authorize this transfer, please call us or please click on this link. And I get messages like that all the time. And towards the beginning, I would never click on the link. I would never call the number, but I would log into my app for the institution just to see, be like, what the heck is going on? I never authorized this. And I would look to see if there's a history of authorizations that were sent out. And lo and behold, there was nothing. When I actually log into the app from my bank or when I log into the app from my brokerage, there's nothing that has been authenticated or authorized. So on the actual app itself, there's no activity, right? But they're saying that there was activity. And it's like, okay, so that is definitely malicious, right? So closing my account or threatening to close my account and then asking me to click on a link, that just by itself is like, nah, bro. And then there's no account masking, right? So the real actual banks still actually have the last 4 digits of your account number at the very least, saying this and such an account number has been referenced to this particular transaction, or we're about to close this specific account number, because they actually have access to your account number. So they'll say the last 4 digits of the account, referencing whatever the account is to try to close that account, right? So this also did not have that. And then the reply stop portion of it is also really sketchy. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm sorry, so you're threatening me to close my account, but then you're saying to reply stop to unsubscribe from all of the future messages. Like, what's happening here? That sounds like a marketing thing. It's like they would usually say reply stop if it's a marketing message that's coming out. So obviously this is not a marketing message. So it implies that this is a smishing tactic. So for a variety of different reasons, this was a scam text message. And again, this would be noticed typically more often than not using some kind of an AI resource, or you can at the very least copy the message, submit it to Grok the way that we just did before and say, hey, does this seem scammy to you? Like, does this seem scammy to you? And if it does, why? Can you please explain why to me? This is another one of those things that elderly folks usually fall victim to, because it is very scary and they receive a text message and they think that it's actually coming from their company, and it is not coming from their company. All right, so as a wrap up, you should by now know the enemy, right? The people, these hackers, these malicious actors, better than 99% of the people. And by the way, so I mean, if you're a repeat viewer on this channel, most of this stuff should be repetition to you. But in case you are not familiar with cybersecurity or you don't have a security background, then you should have gotten a good introduction to a lot of these different threat tactics. And then finally, the defense in depth element plus AI. So when we talk about defense in depth, it's things like, endpoint detection and response tools, things like security logs, and then merging the activities of those things with threat intelligence feeds, right? Like using threat intelligence feeds like the MITRE ATT&CK framework and EDR systems and security logs, and then merging them with the power of AI, which is the best combination that we can actually have that will scale in 2025 and beyond. Honestly, this is the end of 2025 as I record this. It's November of 2025. So by the time that we finish with this course, most likely we're going to be in 2026. So a lot of these things I will have to change the updates of my notes from 2025 to read 2026. So this is that's kind of the setup of everything that we're going to be going through in the next few videos. The very next one is going to be all around prompt engineering to like really give us a good understanding of how we can customize our interaction with the various AIs. And then from there, we're going to use those engineered prompts and those skill sets to actually create some advanced integrations between our AI tools and a variety of different cybersecurity tools. So I got a quick little quiz for you. Feel free to pause the video to try to answer these. These are things that we've already talked about in this video, so you don't have to go outside of this video to try to do anything else to try to find these answers. And it's just like a fun little knowledge check. So what's the #1 financial crime in 2025? That was on the threats list. The name of one deepfake red flag. So see if you can find one or think of one red flag for a deepfake type of a threat, deepfake type of an exploit. And what does UEBA stand for? This is actually something that I didn't even remember, so I don't expect you to remember, but I think it's nice for you to at least Google. You could probably Google that instead of going back into the video. But there is a timestamp for that specific threat on the video. So in the description of this video, you can find the timestamp that will take you to that directly, or you could always just Google it to try to find the answer for that. The first person that drops all of the answers for these questions in the comments will get a lifetime membership to our Discord for the cyber supporters of Hackaholics Anonymous. So I'm gonna start giving that as a reward. So the first person that drops the comments to this, and I feel like I already know who's gonna drop it, and they're already an advanced member of the community of Hackaholics Anonymous. So if you're already a member, then I will extend your membership to a lifetime membership. So even if you leave our membership, you will always be inside of our Discord. But if you're not a member, then I will extend a free Discord membership to you, to the Hackaholics Anonymous supporter Discord. That being said, I think we're officially done. So some final notes here, and you'll be dismissed for the day. Okay, so as a friendly reminder for Hackaholics Anonymous, inside of our Google Drive for episode 4 of the AI for Cybersecurity, we have the Cyber Terms cheat sheet, we have the Spot the Threat interactive game, Spot the Threat red flag checklist, and of course the Threat Landscape mind map, which is also available. And all of this stuff is just for episode 4 of the AI for Cybersecurity training series, and this is available to cyber agents and above, because anybody that's in cyber agents and above, they get access to all of the downloads for all of the videos, including the CompTIA videos and the notes and the practice questions and all of that stuff. And as we get further and further into the development of this particular course, and I start releasing source code and integrations and things like that, all of that stuff is going to be uploaded in the various episode folders as well, and you will have all of those available for download. So if you do join Hackaholics Anonymous as an agent or above, you will get access to all of the downloads in our Google Drive. So that being said, I think we're good for this one. If you found any value in this video, and if you'd like to get more videos like this one, then I encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out. Please make sure to drop your comments and questions in the comment section below. And of course, feel free to browse the channel. There's a lot of stuff that's happening on this channel. There's constant updates taking place. There's a lot of playlists that already exist. So this is one of those things that it's constantly going to be updating. There's like more things that are updating. And then there's members only content, and then there's members first content. So members actually get access to all of the content in advance, a lot of times weeks in advance. And then there are certain videos that are reserved for members only. So for example, tutorials that go along with the Python scripts that I give to cyber agents and above. So if you join as a cyber agent, every month you'll get a Python script, but then on top of that, you'll get these tutorial videos. There was a fly that was in front of me. You'll get these tutorial videos that explain line by line how those scripts work, so that you can go ahead and and customize them for yourself, or use them for customization of your work, or try to explain them during a job interview or something like that, right? So there's a lot of great stuff that's available on the channel, including all of the CompTIA trainings that are available here as well. And people have used these videos to either pass their examinations or get jobs at different companies. So these are actually all very legit, and I'm very, very proud of them. And there's more of those things going to be coming up as well. So again, make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out on this channel. And of course, drop a comment or drop your questions below. If you want access to my notes and exclusive downloads, and to get lifetime access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers. We have the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below, and you will be able to choose the tier for which you want to join. I really hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. And I will see you in the next video later.